A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 155. Hanli never expected the three sects to suffer such a huge loss. He actually used such a reason to explain away the matter of his faked death. Picking up where we left off, Hanli obtained the treasure and returned to the quiet room. The disciples inside were still unconscious. The white fox, which had been transformed into his appearance and was lying in his place, reverted to its small fox form upon seeing Hanli and flew into his large sleeve. It faintly asked Hanli how he would deal with the fact that he hadn't died. Hanli planned to use an illusion talisman as an excuse to get by. After all, the art of illusion is very strange. Even a highly skilled cultivator might be deceived and not notice it at first. More than half a day later, the yellow-robed cultivator walked into the quiet room with a grim expression and cast a spell to awaken the unconscious disciples. When the disciples saw they were out of danger, they immediately felt relieved. However, they were all greatly startled when they saw that Hanli was also unharmed. Hanli took out a self-made illusion talisman and used his prepared excuse to explain the situation. The disciples didn't know much about the art of illusion, so they didn't suspect anything. Hearing this, the yellow-robed cultivator didn't ask any more questions. The spirit well nectar had been stolen, so the task of cleansing the spirit sprout wood was naturally a failure. In the end, the cultivators gave each disciple a magical artifact as compensation, then announced that the trial assembly was over, ordering the disciples of the three sects to return to their respective homes. These core formation cultivators all had solemn expressions, their faces filled with anxiety. The disciples also knew that something major must have happened. Although they were somewhat dissatisfied and frustrated, they could only obediently return to their sects. After Hanli and the others returned to the sect, they were summoned for questioning by several high-ranking members. They were then allowed to leave and were given a gag order. Later, Hanli learned that the three sects had suffered a great loss this time. They had intended to set a trap to lure out the spies within their sects, but unfortunately, it ended in a complete failure, leaving them utterly humiliated. Not only did they let Dudong and the others take the spirit well nectar back to the righteous and devilish Daos, but they also let the cultivator surnamed Bai and everyone else escape safely from the state of Shi. The cultivator surnamed Bai, however, was killed on the spot by the elder surnamed Fu and the others. After the heavenly devil sect's leader's possession ended, the cultivator surnamed Wei was captured alive by the fire dragon boy. Ultimately, no news of him was ever heard again. It is unknown whether he was killed or imprisoned. The two nascent soul cultivators of the Drifting Cloud sect and some of the three sects' core formation cultivators fell into an ambush by the devilish Dao's Thousand Illusions sect and the heavenly devil sect. Not only were several core formation cultivators killed or injured, but the nascent soul stage Elder Chung was besieged by several cultivators of the same stage and returned heavily injured. After their strength was greatly damaged, the three sects, through the Heavenly Dao Alliance, put heavy pressure on the righteous and devilish Daos. But both the righteous and devilish sides completely denied the incident occurred. After some wrangling, the matter was dropped without resolution. But fortunately, the spirit well nectar failed to revive the withered profound heaven immortal vine. This finally allowed the three sects and other members of the Heavenly Dao Alliance to breathe a secret sigh of relief. After this incident, all three sides significantly raised their level of alertness. The atmosphere, which had been peaceful for over 100 years, became tense again. After Hanli returned to his immortal's cave, he transplanted the spiritual root of the Spirit Eye tree near the Nine Bends Spirit Mountain. After all, since both were spiritual objects of heaven and earth, perhaps they could even nourish each other. In the following days, after Hanli dealt with a few waves of fellow disciples asking for news, he began to cultivate diligently. Perhaps influenced by the events of the trial assembly, the bottleneck in his great development art was inexplicably broken. He tried cultivating it, and surprisingly, his progress advanced by leaps and bounds, which made Hanli overjoyed. He once again cultivated the great development art and the azure essence sword art simultaneously. Hanli was very clear that his cultivation of the great development art was so smooth mostly due to the effect of that string of soul-nourishing beads. Ever since wearing these beads, his spiritual sense was imperceptibly and constantly strengthening, even without deliberately cultivating it. So now, his cultivation speed for the great development art was extremely fast. It was as if the water in the pond was already there. Now, he only needed to expand the pond's area and channel the water in. Moreover, whenever he cultivated the great development art, strands of cool energy would flow from the soul-nourishing wood beads into his nascent soul, allowing him to cultivate effortlessly and achieve twice the result with half the effort. During this time, every few days, Han Li would use the green liquid to ripen the spiritual root of the spirit tree. In just a few short months, a new spirit tree seedling grew on the spiritual root. It was only a matter of time before it grew to be as tall as the spirit eye tree in the forbidden area. Han Li was also constantly practicing alchemy to prepare for refining the 9 Ben's spirit ginseng pill. Amidst constant diligent cultivation and alchemy, time quietly passed. Unless it was for necessary social obligations, Han Li would not take a single step out of his immortal's cave. If it was a critical period of his cultivation, he would have the silver fox transform into his appearance to deal with the occasional visiting fellow disciples. Although the woman surnamed Mu was still a bit suspicious of Han Li at first, he always remained in seclusion, keeping a low profile without making any unusual moves. She gradually dismissed her suspicions and once again treated him as an ordinary qi condensation stage disciple. In a flash, Han Li had stayed in the Drifting Cloud sect for over 20 years. He was finally about to form his nascent soul and break through to the nascent soul stage. After failing to refine the 9 Ben's spirit ginseng pill several times, it was finally successfully refined on the last attempt. It was a milky white, thumb-sized pill, translucent throughout and shimmering with spiritual light. Wisps of milky white spiritual mist floated around it, faint and ethereal, a sign of a divinely created spirit medicine. Seeing this, Han Li showed a look of joy. Thankfully, it was successfully refined this time, otherwise, he would have suffered a huge loss, because the agate horn and half-demon grass were almost used up, making another attempt impossible. As for the 9 Ben's spirit ginseng, Han Li was not worried about the raw material. Previously, he had been reluctant to use the entire spirit ginseng for alchemy. He only extracted a bit of its essence, sparing its life, though this greatly damaged the ginseng's vitality. After setting up several layers of restrictions, he cautiously dripped diluted green liquid onto the 9 Ben's ginseng, gradually increasing the amount, afraid of any accidents. After all, this was a spiritual object of heaven and earth and might be different from ordinary spirit herbs. After dripping the green liquid, the ginseng actually recovered a lot of its vitality, and there were no other abnormalities. Only then did Han Li feel relieved and begin to drip the pure green liquid. Whenever he extracted its essence, he would use the green liquid to restore its vitality. In this way, the essence of the 9 Ben's ginseng became endless. However, this method seemed to only be effective on the 9 Ben's ginseng. When Han Li tested it on other spirit medicines, the effect was very poor and not as fast as directly ripening them. After Han Li put the 9 Ben's spirit ginseng pill into a jade box, he walked out of the alchemy room. 5 or 6 years ago, he had already cultivated the 4th layer of the Great Development Art, greatly increasing his spiritual sense once again. A few months ago, he had cultivated the 9th layer of the Azure Essence Sword Art to the Great Perfection stage, allowing his own cultivation to enter the false nascent stage. He didn't immediately try to form his nascent soul. Instead, he walked out of his immortal's cave and found a place with beautiful mountains and clear waters. He sat there cross-legged motionless, and relived his past life experiences from beginning to end in great detail, enjoying family happiness with his parents in his childhood, playing with his younger sister as a youth, and then, due to his third uncle's recommendation, entering the 7 Mysteries sect where he met Li Feiyu and others. He accidentally met Dr. Mo, which allowed him to cultivate the eternal spring arts, and later, starting from the Tainan small meat, he truly stepped into the cultivation world. As the memories went from blurry and unclear to gradually becoming clear, the expression on Han Li's face also changed from joy to anger, constantly shifting. He no longer had his previous calm demeanor that didn't show his emotions. 3 days later, Han Li's eyes were tightly closed, and the expression on his face returned to calm. He began to think of nothing, quietly comprehending the Tao of heaven and earth. 1 month later, Han Li's body, mind and magical power were all in their optimal state. His mental state, in particular, had reached a new level. The calm-hearted Han Li returned to his immortal's cave and activated all the grand formations and restrictions outside. Then he said to the silver fox, "Guard the entrance. Even if something world-shattering happens, do not disturb me." After saying this, he walked into the quiet room. The stone door fell, and a white light flashed on it as a layer of thick runes appeared. Then, Han Li activated another layer of restrictions from the inside to prevent any unexpected disturbances during his nascent soul formation. The silver fox knew that Han Li was entering seclusion to form his nascent soul. A complex expression containing envy, longing, unwillingness, and other emotions appeared on its face. It looked at the quiet room for a long time, sighed, and left the vicinity. Now, it was inextricably linked to Han Li. Although it had other thoughts, it also hoped that Han Li could successfully form his nascent soul. When Han Li breaks through to the nascent soul stage, a celestial phenomenon will inevitably occur, which will then attract the attention of the drifting cloud sect's upper echelons. How will they treat Han Li? Will they take the opportunity to attack and kill him? Please give us a like and subscribe, fellow Taoists. Let's continue our chat in the next episode.